Hey, you're looking for a podcast where you can hear from some of the great hockey legends, hear them tell some great stories, find out what they're up to today? Well, you're in the right place. It's the Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Gino Retta. Today's guest, he's a Stanley Cup champion, two-time Vezina winner, Olympic gold medalist, number 5 on the all-time wins list by goalies, a Hockey Hall of Famer, Eddie the Eagle Belfour. Eddie, welcome, buddy. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Gino, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I should point out to our hockey fans, I mean, obviously you had so much success with Dallas. It's not surprising you're in Texas right now, but I wasn't expecting this. You had snow in Texas, is that right?
Yeah, we did. About a week ago, we had about 6 inches of snow, which it doesn't happen here very often, but every once in a while we do.
That's crazy. Of course, we're talking to a guy from Carmen, Manitoba, small town, Western Canada. So much has happened. Over the next little while, I kind of want to talk back on some of the crazy things that happened in your life. And I want to start, we'll get to your Stanley Cup and your Vezinas and your Calder, one of the very few goalies in NHL history to win Rookie of the Year as a goalie, which is insane. But you had humble beginnings. You came playing Tier 2 in Winkler for the Winkler Flyers.
Yeah.
Before you ended up playing at the University of North Dakota. Was there a time where you thought, this is too much work, forget it, I give up, I'm never going to make it?
No, that never entered my mind ever. My dream ever since I was 5, 6 years old, watching Hockey Night in Canada, and my favorite teams, Chicago Blackhawks and the Leafs, of course. That was my goal, was to play in the NHL and hoist the cup one day. And even when I didn't make my high school hockey team, I still kept my dreams alive.
That's crazy. You didn't make your high school hockey team? Did you ever
No,
contact the coach who cut you and said, you want to see my ring coach?
no. I understood the situation at the time, and it just motivated me that much more. And I think things like that are challenging, obviously, but they make you stronger in the end. And I think the similar thing happened to me when I signed with the Blackhawks after, we won the NCAA with the Fighting Sioux in 86, 87, 40 wins, 8 losses. They called our team the Dream Team, and I was a free agent, undrafted. Signed with the Blackhawks thinking I was going to be on their team right away, but that wasn't the case. I got sent to the minors and probably spent the better part of 3 years in the minors. And those were some difficult times. I will be honest with you there, Gino. I was wondering there for a while, am I ever going to get my shot? And I just kept believing in myself, kept working hard, and eventually I got an opportunity.
It's amazing because you kind of briefly flew by the fact that you won a national championship with the University of North Dakota, which is huge. It's absolutely huge. So the Hawks got your real first good look at you there. And as you mentioned, you were never drafted and you signed with them as a free agent.
Yeah.
At that point, when they sent you to the minors to get some extra work, now you're in your early 20s. You're not one of these 17 or 18-year-old kids that somebody looks at and goes, oh, this guy's the future of our organization. You just had to keep proving yourself over and over and over again. And you ended up playing in the old International Hockey League for the first little while.
Yeah.
What was it like for you mentally to battle through something like that?
Yeah, that wasn't easy. It was pretty tough at the time being sent down to the minors for the first time because I fully expected to be in Chicago right off the bat. My heart was definitely hurt for a little while there. I remember for the first 2 months, I really was terrible in the minors and didn't play that well. And I had to change my style and learn the pro game, much different than the college game. And it was my first time really on my own. And it was very challenging at the time. I'm sure the Blackhawks brass was wondering what they were doing signing this kid out of college. Anyway, by the end of the year, I was co-rookie of the year with John Cullen. I adjusted and made some good changes to my game. And I had a really good coach, Dennis DeRozier, who really pushed me, and he was good for me that year. And I felt really good about myself by the end of the year and thinking, next year I'm going to make the Blackhawks and, off to the races, right? And that was my attitude.
Didn't you also have a stint, and like refresh my memory here, but didn't they also send you to play for the Canadian national team where you actually traveled? Because oftentimes our national team isn't a travel team, but you actually stuck together as a group and you traveled and trained and worked out with them. How did that come about?
Yeah. So my second year, I went back to training camp and I had a better camp, but still I wasn't quite good enough in their minds. And looking back on it, I wasn't good enough to play in the NHL yet. And they sent me to Saginaw again. And that year I had Daryl Sutter as my head coach. And I loved Daryl. He was awesome for me. He really pushed me, but he was always in my corner. And I got called up for the first time to play that year. I think, called up and down maybe five, six times. And that was my first chance to get in and show what I could do. I remember I got called up to Detroit from Saginaw and played my first game at the Joe Louis. And I had good memories at the Joe Louis because that's where we won the NCAA with the Sioux. So one of my favorite places to play. Always enjoyed it there, and a lot of great memories at the Joe Louis Arena. And Keenan was the coach at that time. So that year was great, but it was challenging at the same time. I got married during the season, and I had my son Dane in the spring, and so it was an interesting year. And I finished that year in Saginaw, and at the end of the year, I just said to myself, okay, whatever happens next year, don't have too much expectations. Just go there and work hard. That's when I went to camp for the third time, and again, I didn't make the team. Um, they asked me if I wanted to go back to the minors or try with Dave King and Guy Charon, and then it was called the Canadian Olympic Development Team, and it was out of Calgary, Alberta. So I said, hey, I'd love to play for my country, and off I went to Calgary and traveled the world with Dave King and a bunch of awesome teammates, and saw a lot of the world. And I, at the time, it wasn't so much fun, 6-week road trips, but looking back on it, I got to see, Russia and Moscow during that period of, uncertainty in the world. Czechoslovakia was beautiful. Davos, Switzerland was beautiful. So looking back on that experience, it was really good for me. And that international experience playing against some of those Russian teams, the Red Army team, where we couldn't get the puck from those guys. And it was amazing to see how good they were. And they beat us like, I don't know, 8-0, 9-0, 10-0. And they had the puck like three-quarters of the game. So it was tough times, but it was a lot of fun at the same time looking back on it.
Credit to you though, because you were playing for some tough coaches. You mentioned Sutter. You played for Iron Mike. There probably wasn't a bigger love-hate relationship between any coach in NHL history than Mike Keenan and his goalies anywhere.
Yeah.
He was than Hook. He had no problems with it. But there was one time where he gave, I think, and correct if I'm wrong, you were down the stretch or in the playoffs, and Jimmy Waite was the goalie, and he got the hook, and Mike turned to you on the bench and put you in, and that was the turning point for you. Is that what that moment was for you?
That was actually that year I was with Team Canada, traveling all around, and I just saw Mike Keenan at the Hall of Fame for Jeremy's big
For
Hall of
Roenick,
Fame induction, and I got a chance to sit down with Mike and talk with him about our fun times together and our history, and on that. We were on a Eastern trip, traveling across Eastern Canada with a Russian team, and we were playing, I can't remember, 10 games or something. Same team, or there was maybe two teams. But Vladislav Tretiak showed up at one of our games. And of course, the guys get wind of who's in the stands watching us and stuff. And, one of the assistant coaches came in and said, hey, Ed, you know who's in the stands tonight? Vladislav Tretiak. And I was like, Oh
one
my
of the
gosh.
five.
And I was just so excited. Well, we had a hard time even, keeping up with any of the Russian teams. It was very difficult to beat them. Well, that night I probably played one of the best games of my life. I think they outshot us like 50-15, and we ended up winning the game 2-1, and I got first star. And Trechak came into the room after the game. He walked right up to me and he shook my hand. He's like, "Good game." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's just amazing." Like, I was in awe. And he didn't speak very good English, but, I understood what he was saying. Well, about a week later, I got called up to Chicago after that game. And I had a brand new set of Brian's pads, and I put them on, and they were just like magic. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, these are magic pads!" Right? I'm stopping everything. I'm just feeling like I'm in the groove. What a great time to get called up. And I remember we were playing Minnesota in the first round, and we were down 3-1 in the series. And it was Greg Millen who was our starter back then. And I'm sitting on the bench. It's 3-0 at the end of the first period, and Keenan comes over and he kicks me in the ribs. He goes, "You're in, kid. Get ready." I was so excited and so nervous at the same time. But I just remember being on fire, and I went in there and just stoned him. We came back and won the game. So now the series was 3-2. He played me the next game on fire again. We tied the series up 3-3. And game 7, he didn't play me. He played Greg Millen, which was probably the right choice. It was good. We ended up winning. And we went on to the second round against St. Louis Blues. And he started me, and he played me all 7 games. And we ended up winning in game 7. Went on to the third round against Edmonton Oilers. He started me the first game, and that's when they were really hot.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't. I played okay, but we lost 4-2. And then after that, I didn't play again. But we lost the series. I think it was 4-1. They went on and won the Stanley Cup. I think that was the year they were playing Boston in the finals, and that was
But
my big
so
chance.
yeah, and you know what? You took advantage of it. You proved yourself, and I joke with in TSN, we call it the TSN turning point. That was your TSN turning point, because the next year now you're the number one in Chicago. You're
Yeah,
25 years old. You're not some young kid,
yeah,
and you're a workhorse, man. And a day today where we talk about platooning and net, you
yeah,
played 74 games that
yeah,
year. You won 43 of them. You won the Vezina,
yeah,
and even more mind-boggling, you won the Calder.
yeah.
Rookie year as a goalie, which was crazy difficult. And you're a finalist for the Hart. Goalies never get recognition for the Hart, or rarely do. It
Yeah.
rarely happens.
It
What
was
was that
amazing.
year like for you?
It was amazing. It was a dream come true. And guess who my goalie coach was that year?
It
Tre-
was.
Trechak.
I love Fred Check.
So, so I always wondered, why did Vladislav Trechak show up to watch me, on that Russian series? Well, I asked Mike about that. He had already hired Trechak before, like we knew that he was our goalie coach, and he sent Vladdy out there to watch me. And that summer, I ended up training with Vladdy and Jimmy Waite, who was our first round draft pick at the time, and we trained with Vladdy that summer. And so going to training camp, we were ready to take on the world, Jimmy and I. Like, we were both in great shape. We had been learning from Trechak all summer, and I was blessed with the opportunity to be the number one guy, and played all those games and won all those awards. I just feel blessed and lucky to have that opportunity. And I look back on it, and I'm so thankful to Mike Keenan, obviously, and Vladislav Trechak, Daryl Sutter, and they really helped me, and I really appreciate that.
You proved your worth, man. You'd mentioned making it to the Cup final against the Edmonton Oilers, a phenomenal team. Then the following year, you get to face Mario Lemieux and the Pittsburgh Penguins, Yager in the Stanley Cup final in the 91-92 season.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost feel bad for you, because you were at the top of your game, but you were facing a couple of the teams that were the greatest teams of all time.
Oh,
The
I
year
know.
them.
It it was. But I look back on that, and I mean, yeah, we lost, but I learned so much from those series, and we won 11 straight to go to the finals that year, and then we lost four straight in the finals. That was pretty devastating. But all
And
those all those valuable lessons you take to heart, and you carry them over into the next season, and that's how I carried myself. I took those lessons to heart, and I always wanted to be better, and I that's why I carried throughout my career is get better every year.
get ready for the game with the Domino's $8.99 mix and match deal. Score big with any medium two-topping pizza and any two items like pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Domino's has you covered. Order today from Canada's favorite pizza at domino's.ca. In conversation with Hockey Hall of Famer, Stanley Cup champion, two-time Vezina winner, Eddie Belfour. One of the great things, I was actually talking to Marty Biron about this earlier today, and I said, I'm chatting with Eddie Belfour later today, and I was thinking in my head, you are the same age as Dominik Hasek. You both ended up signing with the Chicago Blackhawks. Hasek was also a little older because he had played a couple of years, I think 3 years pro hockey in the Czech Republic, then Czech Republic before coming over. So you guys are competing for the job. Dominik Hasek, Eddie Belfour competing for the starting role on the Chicago Blackhawks. And then years later, you're both kids trying to cut your teeth. And then years later, you both go into the Hockey Hall of Fame's first ballot. What was that like? Your relationship with Dominik Hasek, because nobody knew at that point what you and what Dominik were capable of at that point.
Yeah, no, it was very competitive right from the start, and of course Jimmy Waite was in on that deal too. Um, we all wanted to be the number one guy. We all pushed one another. We were all kind of quiet towards one another, and you got that quiet competition going on. Because you in your mind you think, hey, I'm the best guy. I'm the number one guy. Give me the reins. Let me, show what I can do. And obviously, Dominik with his career, he showed, what a champion he can be. And for me, when we played Dominik in the Stanley Cup Finals when I was with Dallas and Dominik was at the other end with Buffalo, that brought out all those memories of us competing against each other when we were rookies. And I'm sure he was feeling the same way towards me. Like, I got to prove that I'm better than Eddie. And for me, I was like, there's no way I'm going to let Dominik beat me.
Yeah.
So there was there was a lot of extra there for both of us, and it brought the best out of us. Like we both played. I think looking back on that series, we both played really well, and you know the games were close. They were tight. They were fun to watch. Defensive, of course. Big saves at both ends of the ice, and I just feel blessed that at the end of the whole series, I got to hoist the cup, and it was just a dream come true. It was amazing, and like at the same time, you feel a little bit bad for Dominik, but you know, at the same time, you're that's your dream, that's your goal, and I wasn't going to let him win.
What was that like? What was that like? I mean, just to give a bit of a backdrop to the hockey fans who may not have tracked this, um, midway through the 1999-97 season, after winning two Vezinas, three Jennings during your time at rookie at the Calder with the Hawks traded you near the deadline to San Jose. You were there for just a cup of coffee. And
Yeah,
then Dallas, Bob Gainey was in the building process of building a Stanley Cup contender, and he wanted you, and he went out and got you. You signed a 5-year deal with them as a free agent. I'm sure that must have been a very difficult transition for you, but to know that they were out there building a cup champion team and they brought in Brett Hull, which also obviously was huge. What was it like to have to leave Chicago, but to go at a place where you thought, I got a real chance to win here?
yeah, that was difficult leaving Chicago. That was like I said, my favorite team as a kid. I wanted to be a Blackhawk, my whole career and see my jersey up in the rafters and win a Stanley Cup there. That was my dream and my goal. Being traded there, I still remember the date, January 26, 97. One of the saddest days of my career. And, I left there a bit devastated, but at the same time, I didn't give up. I wanted to prove, that I could still be a champion. And it didn't work out in San Jose. Um, Becoming a free agent July 1st, my first choice was Dallas, and they wanted me. So it was a perfect marriage. And went to Dallas with a mindset of winning a Stanley Cup. I could see what Bob was putting together there. I could see the players he was bringing in. Joe Newendike was there, Zubov. You had Madonna and Lettinen and Hatcher and Ludwig. I mean, we had so many, brought in Carbonell and Keen. So many great players that Bob put together. And bring in Hitch there to be the coach. Rick Wilson and Doug Jarvis, our assistant coaches, you could just see that Bob was on the right track, and I wanted to be part of that. And I would
Yeah.
just feel really lucky that the timing of it worked out. And, like I said, it was the perfect marriage. We set a lot of records there. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's always amazing when the group of guys get back together and talk about old times and stuff. And to hoist that cup was amazing, and I always want to thank Bob for that and thank the guys, and it's just an amazing feeling to look back.
I've I've had a lot of Stanley Cup champions on this show, and I always love to ask this question. What's it like when you get to hoist the cup and like the clock ticks down to zero, everything goes flying in the air, your gloves, it's a yard sale, it's done. You can finally exhale. What's that emotion like for you, Eddie, when you finally got a chance to do that?
I mean, I was kind of in disbelief for probably the first 20 seconds. Like, I kept asking myself, did that really just happen? And then, and then I remember Richard Mappichuk just was skating towards me like full speed, and I think we met right by the blue line in midair, rolled around on the ice, I think hugging each other for the next minute. It seemed like, and then obviously joined the crowd at the other end. With Holly scoring that huge goal for us, and it was just amazing. Like, it's hard to explain the emotions. Like, I was in tears, obviously, and obviously, laughing and crying and everything at the same time. And, then you get everybody just in one big pile, like when we were little kids, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we've always wanted since we were probably 5, 6 years old. And experiencing that is, to me, like second to none. And then when you get handed the cup, I think I screamed maybe for the next 5 minutes, and I don't think I wanted to give up the cup. So absolutely amazing, Gino, and I just absolutely feel so blessed that I got to do that.
The smile on your face right now is awesome because when we started having this conversation, and I've known you for decades now, and you always said, Chicago and Toronto were your favorite teams. You got to play for both of those teams. You got to win a Stanley Cup with the Dallas Stars. I got to ask you about your time in Toronto.
Yeah.
You signed as a free agent there for 3 seasons with them, and you're a rock star. You set a franchise record with 37 wins, and you finished second in the Northeast with them right away. You had your 400th career win in a Toronto that happened in a Toronto Maple Leaf uniform. You were a rock star in the playoffs. You were in a city. You are now in one of the most hockey crazed markets in the world in the sport.
Yeah.
What was that like for you at that time?
Oh, I absolutely cherished it. I loved it. Loved the challenge. Playing in front of the fans. I tell this story often. You traveled around the league playing in visitors' buildings, and we would score a goal in the visitors' building, and there'd be a louder cheer for us scoring a goal than there was for the home team. There's just so many Leaf fans around the world. It was just such a fun time, and I'm so proud that I got to be a Leaf. And it didn't start out that way. I will tell you, the first month or so in Toronto, I got booed quite a bit, and I was like, "What the heck's going on here?" And I didn't realize, it happened a little bit when I went to Dallas too, because I was a Blackhawk all those years, right? And then it finally dawned on me, like they hate me because I was a Blackhawk. And you got all those rivalries, from the old Norris division. And once they realized that I was, 100% committed to helping the Leafs win, and start putting up shutouts and stuff, then they started chanting my name. That was such an amazing feeling to feel the energy and the support from the Leaf fans. And the media, as you know, can be challenging.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I was a veteran at that time, and I was fine with the pressure. I loved it. It helped me make play better, and I loved the challenge. And you know, our team was really close to being a Stanley Cup contender. We had a couple of injuries to key players at the wrong time. Matt's got injured there, and we were really close. But I could you imagine winning the cup in Toronto? That would have been just absolutely a topper for sure, and I relish that time.
Yeah, you and I was just saying this a few minutes ago. You and I were at the Hockey Hall of Fame for Jeremy Roenick's induction. And of course, we all remember being on different sides of the second round matchup where you guys were facing Jeremy Roenick and JR put the game away in that overtime winner in game
Yeah.
6. Did you have a chat with JR at the Hall of Fame about that? Did you?
Oh, we've talked about that goal quite a few times, and I can visualize seeing that goal right now in my mind, and he made an amazing shot. Like there was nowhere else he probably could have scored on me, and he absolutely ripped it, bar down right in the corner. And you know, JR and I played together in Chicago. We have the utmost respect for one another. We're great friends, and I was so happy for him to go into the Hall of Fame, after all these years. And he should have been in there 10 years ago, and for him to go in finally was just awesome to see. And we have a chuckle over that goal once in a while, and I always tell him, "You broke my heart, buddy. You broke my heart."
Yeah, he broke your heart, but you kicked his butt in terms of getting in the Hall of Fame. While he had to wait, you were a first ballot Hall of
Yeah,
Famer in 2011, and I got to be there to be a part of that celebration as well. When I
yeah,
look back at your career, Eddie, I mean, I love the fact that you're smiling so much because in telling these stories, I can see how much you enjoy it. You had 484 career wins. That's insane. That's number 5 on the all-time list. Only 4 of the guys in NHL history had more wins than you: Brodeur, Fleury, Roy, and Luongo. Do you sometimes, does that just land on you sometimes and think, holy mackerel, I was part of something really huge here?
yeah. No, I mean, what a group of guys to have your name, with. And Terry Sawchuk was the guy that we were all chasing, back in the when we first started. And I read Terry's book, amazing competitor. And I just remember, the all the scars on his face. Those guys back then, him and Glenn Hall, Johnny Bauer, those guys playing without a mask. Can you imagine playing without a mask?
No.
And think about Glenn Hall's record. He played like over 500 games in a row without a mask.
Yeah.
There's That record will never be beaten ever. Like I think the most games I ever played in a row, Gina, was like around 28 or 29 games in a row. But can you imagine over 500 games in a row without a
No.
mask too?
That's to say, my mask is right behind me. I used to wear the old Artur Zerbe mask, and I wore that mask, and I took a puck in the face once. It broke my mask, and
Right.
I still got scars on my forehead from it. I
I
mean, if I wasn't wearing that bucket, Eddie, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
I know.
There's
I
no doubt
know.
about that, buddy.
But yeah, like being part of the names like that are, just a real honor. And I just feel very blessed that I got to play in the NHL, and I got to play in so many great teams and so many great players and championships. And, it's just, I look back on it and I miss it so much. I relish those times. And, I still think in my mind, like, hey, maybe I can make a comeback and enjoy, those moments again. But hey, almost 60 years old, the body just is not going to keep up.
I want to ask you about what you're doing now because, listen, a lot of times after your NHL career, you want to be able to spend as much time with your family. And you're in business now with your son and daughter in Belfour Spirits. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so right now they're not involved anymore, but we started this 10 years ago. We do bourbon whiskey and rye whiskey, and I did start it out with Dane and Reagan, my two older kids, and they really helped me get the business going. It hasn't been an easy business, I will tell you, but I look back at my career, like we talked about when it first started. There's a lot of ups and downs. It's like that in anything. I think that you really want to do well at. There's always going to be bumps in the road, and you just keep moving forward. You keep doing your best, and Belfour Spirits is still moving forward. We're still keeping it going, and I look forward to bringing it to Canada here, hopefully in the next year or two.
I look forward to sampling it. How did you get involved in that? How did you pick out of all the business you could have got involved in? How did you pick whiskey?
Well, being a Canadian, I grew up drinking Labatt's Blue and Crown Royal, Canadian Club, and always enjoyed that field from a standpoint of the creativity. No two bourbons or whiskeys taste exactly like. There's a lot of craft involved in creating really good flavors. The mash bill comes into play, the yeast you use,
Listen
the
to
type of
you.
barrel you use with the toasting and charring. It all creates very unique flavors. And I have a very creative side to me. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I have an art background. And I just love that part of it, of creating stuff. And we've created some double gold winners, which
Wow.
is not easy to do. And I feel very proud about that, and look forward to bringing it to Canada, like I said.
And I'll tell you what, buddy, I look forward to sampling it because I do like a good whiskey. So I don't mind telling you that. So I
Yeah.
look that. Eddie, you've been so gracious with your time. Thanks, buddy. I'm so glad you're doing so well. Listen, we do something we call five fast facts. Before I let you go, do you mind playing along? I ask you five quick questions. You give me the five things, the first thing that come to your mind. Work for that?
Yeah.
All right, let's make it happen. Time now for five fast facts with Stanley Cup champion and two-time Vezina Award winner Eddie Belfour. Eddie, best teammate you ever played with and why?
Chris Chelios. Uh,
Because
he's the ultimate leader, the ultimate warrior, just a awesome guy on and off the ice, and he's the godfather of Dane and Reagan.
and we've had him on the show. It was a good guest. Who did you hate playing against the most and why?
Bob Probert. And
That's why.
he was such a warrior out there every shift. And back then, if you remember, I would go out in the net and play the puck all the time.
Yep.
We didn't have that idiotic
Right.
trapezoid in the game back then. And he would run me almost every time I was out there playing the puck. So I was sure happy when Bob Probert became a Chicago Blackhawk and my teammate.
After all the success in your career on and off the ice, what's the one piece of advice you would give yourself if you could go back and speak to your 15-year-old Eddie Belfour? What advice would you give yourself?
Have more fun. Not take it so serious.
Is the best coach an obvious answer for you?
Oh, that's a tough one, but I had so many really good coaches. But I will tell you, I really loved playing for Pat Quinn. We had a great relationship. I loved him like a big brother.
One final question for you. If you hadn't become a professional hockey player, what career do you think you would have done instead?
Golf.
Oh, how's your game now?
It's very average, but I love playing. I love the challenge of it. And it's just a great sport to make new friends and just have a great time. I just love that sport.
That's five fast facts with Hockey Hall of Famer Eddie Belfour. Eddie, buddy, I tell you what, I'm really glad you're doing so well. I'm so happy. You look like you can't wipe the smile off your face. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Gino. I really appreciate you.
Stanley Cup champion, one of only two players to have won an NCAA championship, a Stanley Cup, and an Olympic gold medal, Hockey Hall of Famer Eddie Belfour has been our guest. The Overtime Podcast is proudly presented by Domino's Pizza and Athlete's Care. If you're watching the big game at home or hungry right now, Domino's has you covered. Check out the Domino's Mix and Match deal. Medium, 2 toppings pizzas, pastas, stuffed cheesy bread, boneless chicken, or classic chicken wings. Any 2 items for only $8.99 each. Canada's favorite pizza at Domino's.ca. Athlete's Care is proud to be celebrating its 26th year, offering sports medicine services to both elite athletes and the general population who require rehab for a new or chronic injury or pain. Go to where the best go. Athlete's Care Sports Medicine Clinics with 25 locations in the Greater Toronto Area and in Ottawa. Please check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel at O-Time Podcast. The Domino's Pizza Overtime Podcast can be found on Spotify, iTunes Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Until next week, I'm Gino Reda saying so long, hockey fans, and thanks for joining us on the Domino's Overtime Podcast.